Okay, so hi everyone, this is Karen and my partner is Sabrina. The instructional model that we will be talking about today is called peer teaching. So to start off, peer teaching is a form of direct instruction and learning happens as a result of social interactions. Um, yeah. The quote that is associated with this type of teaching is quote, I teach you, then you teach me. In other words, tutors and learners depend on each other, and that is where learning happens. One of the biggest responsibilities that a tutor has during peer teaching is having good communication skills. As for learners, they are responsible for accepting feedback and asking for clarifications from the tutor. Next slide. So for this next slide, I will talk about some of the roles associated with peer teaching. As mentioned in the previous slide, peer teaching involves tutors, learners, and students. Tutors are considered to be teachers of the moment, while learners are the ones who take part in the tutor's activities. The tutor-learner relationship is commonly referred to as a dyad. As for students, this is everyone else who is not taking the role of the tutor or the learner. In peer teaching, a lot of the responsibility is transferred to the tutors, where they are the ones teaching their classmates, but they do have the support of the teacher throughout the process. However, something important to note is that although tutors are considered to be teachers of the moment, they are not in control of decisions related to unit content, class management, or content progression. This is all up to the teacher to decide. And for our next slide on foundations of peer teaching, as mentioned before, this type of instructional model is very similar to direct instruction in terms of theory and rationale. The ultimate goal of peer teaching is to strive for high rates of opportunities to respond in class and high rates of augmented feedback from tutors. Some of the theories that support the peer teaching model are the social learning theory, cognitive learning theory, and the constructivist learning theory. So, for the social learning theory, this is when people learn by interaction with others and their environment. And for the cognitive learning theory, this is when students develop problem-solving skills in a shared learning environment. And for the constructivist learning theory, this has a strong emphasis on the process of learning in a democratic environment, and students use prior knowledge to interact with their peers. Some of the main assumptions about teaching are the following. Teachers remain in control. Tutors are trained by the teachers, and the development of psychomotor, cognitive, and affective domains are achieved through peer teaching dyads. As for the main assumptions about learning, these are some of its principles. Tutors provide feedback to increase learning in psychomotor domain. Tutors observe, analyze, and instruct learners to increase learning in the cognitive domain. And dyads socialize with one another as part of the affective learning domain. For peer teaching, there are differences in priorities for the role of the learners and tutors. For learners, their first priority is the psychomotor domain, which is all about learning how to perform skills. After the psychomotor domain is the cognitive domain, and after that comes the affective domain. As for the tutors, priorities change. The first priority of the tutor is the cognitive domain, which for them is the ability to understand important performance cues, task structure demands, and provide feedback. Their second priority is the affective domain, and the psychomotor domain is the last of their priorities. Some of the main interactions worth noting are that for the psychomotor domain, learners take instructions given by the tutors to perform a skill. And then for the cognitive domain, tutors need to familiarize themselves with task and content information. And for the affective domain, learner-tutor relationships are important to have so that they can learn from each other.
So moving on to the student readiness for learning. For peer teaching to be effective, students need to be ready to step into two roles. So we have the tutors and the learners. As tutors, they need to understand the material thoroughly, be able to explain it clearly, and model it accurately. This also means they need strong communication skills and the ability to recognize and correct mistakes in a supportive way. Most importantly, they need to be patient and empathetic. Just like any good teacher, um, and then especially when working with peers who may take longer to grasp a task, it just that patience and empathy comes into play. On the learner side, we have students need to be open to receiving feedback from their classmates, even those who may not be more skilled than they are. This requires a certain level of emotional maturity, humility, and a growth mindset. Peer teaching works best in an environment where there is mutual respect and a psychologically safe, where it's okay for them to make mistakes and learn together. Readiness also means being flexible and cooperative, since both tutor and learner are learning how to navigate their roles. Ultimately, the success of this model depends on the interpersonal strengths students bring to the process. And then this slide is based from our textbook, which breaks down the peer teaching model into specific control areas. So before we go into the analysis part, I will briefly explain each feature and the control. So for the content selection, we have the teacher. Um, they choose what is taught and in what sequence, and students will follow the plan. For the managerial control, the teacher will set the rules and routines, while tutors assist in the minor tasks like setup and safety. For the task presentation, the teacher explains the task requirement, which is like the part A, and then the tutors relay the support tasks and execute it, which is the part B. Then for the instructional interactions, there's two communication paths. So first, the teacher gives information to the tutor, which is that A, and then the tutor works interactively with the learner to guide learning, which is the B. Then we have the pacing. After receiving guidance from the teacher, tutors, and the learners can decide the pace of the practice together, um, which is why it's kind of shifted towards the student control side. And then lastly, for the task progression, we have the teacher that sets the overall structure and performance criteria. And once both the tutor and the learner meet expectations, they may progress independently onto the next task. As you can see from the chart, the control mostly stays with the teacher. However, areas like task presentation, interactions, and the pacing shift towards the interactive slash student control side. The key idea here is that the peer teaching promotes shared responsibility while the teacher sets the framework. The students are empowered to engage actively, support one another, and help guide their peers' learning. Then we have the teacher and student roles and responsibilities. So in the peer teaching model, the success of the learning experience depends heavily on these clearly defined roles for the teacher and the student. So for this teacher side, we have that they start the class, um, they manage the equipment, present the tasks and the structure to the tutors. They're also responsible for roll call, assessment decisions, and determining when it's time to move on to new content. One of the most important teacher roles is engaging with tutors, using questions rather than direct instructions to build their problem solving and communication skills. And this is referred to as the path A in the model. On the other hand, on this side, we have students, they take on the role of the tutors and the learners. As tutors, they help manage equipment, relay task instructions to peers, and provide consistent feedback with encouragement. They're expected to interact with the learners, asking questions, guiding performance, and correcting mistakes, which is known to be Path B. Tutors may also be responsible for assessing their peers using structured tools like checklists provided from the teacher. Overall, this model works best when these responsibilities are clearly understood and consistently followed. The teacher provides the foundation, but it's the students who bring the learning to life through active engagement. So lastly, how do we tie this together with working with individuals with disabilities? Peer teaching is a great fit for adaptive physical education and rehabilitative programs, especially for individuals with disabilities. This model encourages inclusive learning by matching learners with peer tutors who understand their needs and can adjust support accordingly. The structure allows tutors to adapt instructions using cues, task sheets, or equipment, all while the teacher monitors for safety and progress. And then some examples of impairments we have here with their design adaptations. We have those with hearing or speech impairments. Tutors can use printed checklists and task sheets and seat learners closer during instruction for better visual access. For students with sight impairments, use large print and avoid assigning tasks that rely on seeing small or fast details. Instead, we emphasize more visible skills. For individuals with physical disabilities, we adapt equipment and allow them to serve as tutors by giving verbal instructions, even if they can't physically demonstrate the task. For English language learners, pairing with bilingual tutors or using translated materials help with comprehension. And then for lower skilled students, they benefit from the patient tutoring and encouragement, while students with behavior disability should be included with extra support and focus on their positive contributions. So we hope you guys learned a lot from our slides, and yeah, that should be the end.